What's up, y'all? It's 10 at 3 time in Tennessee. How are you? Hope you're well. Hope everything in your life is going great here on this Thursday, December 11th, just 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks away from Christmas, and exactly 7 days away from the paralyzing fear that comes from, oh no, did I get everything I needed to get? How can I get this? How can I go get this? How can I get this shipped to the house? Welcome to that time of the year, because it shouldn't be about those things this time of year, but it often is. You know, you got a big family. You want to make sure everybody's taken care of. Everybody's taken care of roughly evenly. You know, you got to be very careful about those sorts of things. Kids keep count. They are smart. They know things. Happy birthday again to my son yesterday. Thank you to everybody who sent the well wishes. Especially for the stuff at the end there about East Tennessee Children's Hospital, which until the day that I leave this earth, I will happily shill for the miracle workers at East Tennessee Children's Hospital. We got a lot to talk about today. Got Lord of the Streams, Tom Barclay back there. Tom, how are you?
Hope you're having a great day. Yeah, I'm doing good. You doing good?
I'm doing good, although
Yeah.
what's interesting is there are so many days in the newish gig that for me have been, so different. Today has felt remarkably similar because it's by 2:30 p.m. Eastern, I'd already written 3 or 4 stories today for the digital side, for getting content up, and it feels like this is what I used to do.
It's the like I said, it's the postseason flurry.
Yeah, it's a flurry of activity, and thank you again to Emily Ray Cochran, who was with us twice yesterday, and Justin Wallace, who helped us out at night on the ones and twos there in Tom Barclay's hot seat. And we had to do that last night because for the second time this week, the minute that we walked out of here at 3:59, to take it to the minute break to go into 10 about town, things happen. And so
yesterday we, as we were about to wrap up there, I think is when the news came out, which let me put that up in the old bottom screen there for you. But yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. That's just how it goes.
Because there are days in this business where you feel like you're really connected, you know exactly what's going on, and you got things ready ahead of time, and you're good to go, and that was a little different yesterday. That was one of those days.
We had the video all set up yesterday, and we played it, and then it's like, well, that meant absolutely nothing. He was right. You know what?
There was
Washington. He was right. He had no plans.
Yeah, he's smart though, because the way that he played that is. You're sending a bat signal to the boosters at the University of Washington, and your boss is saying, "Pay me." So it's smart.
Sometimes you want to keep it fun too.
Yes.
You want to put the air mystery out
Connect
there.
the dots.
Right.
Hey, we're all this, and so we had all this stuff ready to go, and it's not that it's surprising in the sense that for all the words that I've written and said to be published and said over the years. There have been many, many times where either a story, and in some cases, a full podcast was ready ahead of time because we think this kid has told us he's going to commit to Tennessee.
Sure.
So we have a video set up. We have everything. We've recorded this podcast, and we just, hey, we're not going to spoil your moment, young fella. It's the one thing in news that we don't really do, and I'm okay with it, is letting a kid make his commitment, announce it himself, have his fun. They're high school kids. That's one of the very few times where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to fight you on scooping this, or you're young, have this yourself, and then we'll have everything ready to go afterward. And most of the time, what you've been told is true. And then there are moments where a young man says, oh, I'm picking a different hat on the table, or a coach goes,
right.
Oh, I'm actually going elsewhere, or, and so you've wasted words, and, you just, that whole control, like select all, cut, or delete, or the delete button on a podcast, it's just infuriating. And when you go live, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so you're sitting there breaking down, hey, with Ryan Walters going on, this is exactly why this would be one of the very top names on my board. This make all kinds of sense, all of this. And then, like 5 minutes later,
Tennessee's just like, you know what?
Oh, Matt Zenitz and Pete Thamel throwing bombs from above, saying, hey, it's going to be Jim Knowles, who on Monday, I did mention his name.
Yeah.
The one thing I can say, Tom, in fairness, is that It was on Monday. If you go back and watch this, the very first name that I mentioned, Monday. Mm-hmm. Now, I said it with a caveat. That I do not think Tennessee will go do this. But I said, I'll give a synopsis of what I said, an approximation of what I said. If you want to go make a huge splash hire, Jim Knowles isn't technically on the market, but sort of is on the market because the change at Penn State, he's only been there 1 year, so he's not connected. You maybe could go get one of the most respected coordinators in college sports.
For sure.
And I said, but I don't think they will. But technically, you could go, if you want to go big.
I think the name was always going to be
you
that,
could
right?
go do that. And that's why we talked about last night, again, not to rehash, but when you cover a lot of coaching searches, for people who didn't watch last night, athletic directors always have names on a file, either on the computer or written down in a desk. Always.
Yeah.
Where if this person leaves tomorrow, here's people I have in mind. And some people are old school. They don't want it on a cloud anywhere, so they keep it on a legal pad or in a notepad like I've got here, and they put it in their desk. Or at the very least, they file it away in their head. Where every point in time, especially the profile revenue sports, if somebody goes, this is immediately, I'm going to hit the ground running on here's who I'm going to go after. So once you cover enough of those over the course of a career, you start to understand the way they think, and that's why we're able to get pretty decent lists from the top, because all you do, it's simple. If you're at a place like Tennessee, you're covering a place like Tennessee, it's very simple. The very first names you mention are let's say money was no object. Let's say the situation lined up perfectly. Let's disregard whatever it would cost. Here are the top 2 or 3 names that I would want. In a perfect world, this would be my head coach. This would be the defensive coordinator. And if you're a head coach, you do the same thing for staff. This would be my guy. And then the second list is like, okay, who's really good but could be a more reasonable hire if I can't get the very top guys? That's where you go next. And then finally, you mention, who do I know and trust? Who have I worked with before? Who has worked with somebody who, even though I've never worked with them, we've both worked for the same coach in the past, and people speak very highly of this guy. Or I faced this guy's offense or defense in a game, and he kicked my butt, and he really out-schemed me. So I want that brain in this building. And those are essentially you just go down a list and you look at who fits in those categories.
Yeah.
That's what you come up with. When you're putting up a hot board, that's what you do. Money is no object. Here's a reasonable suggestion. Here's people this guy knows and trusts. That's what you do. And when I put that list together, the very first name on the list, Jim Knowles. He was in the if money is no object. And it worked out. They're still working on the buyout details, is my understanding. Of course, knowing the week we've had, Tom, I mean, there'll be something, things seem to be happening between the hours of 3 and 4 quite a lot this week, and right at 3:55.
I mean, that's the time. That's usually how it goes. We call that the afternoon news. It really is.
Get this going for the 5 and 6 o'clock
Typically,
news.
the big
and
news
sports
drops sometime around 3 o'clock if it's like a press release type situation from a big name out there. They're waiting for the end of the day to get that into our news cycle on TV and whatnot for that evening newscast, right?
Yeah, and in the world of sports, too, it's traditionally speaking, Sports Center's at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
And it leads into whatever they've got their primetime 7 o'clock game or studio show or whatever it is, right? And so that is a time to be fresh and big and get something out there. So that's when the national reporters are really, really, really going after stuff.
Yep.
And that's when agents are really, really, really filtering things to those guys. That's how it works. I mean, it works. 75 to 80% of it works exactly the way that you think it works, with coaches and their agents getting a hold of reporters like me or like the big national dogs and getting things out there that benefit themselves or their client, right?
Yeah.
And because the agents get a cut of it too. So all of these things happen, and you start to learn how the business works. So you put together a list, and you're not, even if it's not the name you expected, it doesn't surprise you. And this is one of the rare times, I'll say this, one of the rare times where Tennessee, in basically any sport, for a head coach or an assistant, has hired the very first name that I thought of. In terms of like, if you could go get one of the best, who would you go get?
Right.
Who maybe you could go get. And there are risks to this. And by the way, Tim Banks is going to Auburn. We'll talk about that in a little bit too.
Yeah, here's the thing. There's a lot of quick turnaround happening here. Typically, this stuff doesn't, it doesn't pop off quite this fast. But like we're within a period of less than a week, we're down one OC, up one, or down one defensive coordinator, up one defensive coordinator.
What's that?
Right?
I think it was. I think it was Nobel laureate Lil Wayne. I think it was Nobel laureate Lil Wayne who said, "Real gangsters move in silence like lasagna." And
I don't even know what that means, but
they're getting it done behind the scenes. So when it starts to leak out, it's like a volcano, like it's bubbling and you don't see it.
So how long do you think this has been bubbling for at least for Banks's end of the scenario here?
Probably, I would imagine that going into the Vanderbilt game, it was very much a possibility.
Yeah,
and then after that Vanderbilt game.
Yeah.
At that point, Tim Banks is probably, if I had to guess, that's when he's really feeling like I might be out here, so I need to be putting out feelers for other jobs and seeing where things are and getting my side of the story out about, hey, this defense isn't as bad as you thought it was. Here's what's going on. So you're working all that stuff. And you're trying to filter out what's true and what's not. And so that's going on. And then, Heupel, I'm guessing, he won't be honest with you. He just won't tell you. He won't lie. Unless it's about injuries. He'll lie to your face about injuries. But anything else, doesn't really lie. He won't say much, but he'll just tell you nothing or something else. He won't lie to you. Unless you consider something a lie by omission, I guess, or obfuscation or whatever, misleading, sleight of hand, however you want to describe it. But he's very careful in how he says things. But I would imagine that he knew, and he wasn't the only one, the minute that James Franklin got fired, I would imagine Josh Heupel and a bunch of other head coaches around the country immediately went, who's his agent? Do I know Jim's agent? I'm going to make a call here. I'm going to have my guy make a call here.
Put the feelers out there, right?
Yes. So
see what the temperature of the room is.
So you tell your agent, you text or call your agent, and you say, hey, do you work with Jim, or do you know who Jim's guy is? Can we just hypothetically speaking, my man, can you look at there's two questions. The first one is there any scenario where you would take this job? Are you legitimately in any way interested in this job? To which the answer always needs to be yes. It always needs to be yes, because if you don't answer that, then you do not get to question number 2, which is how much would it take?
What's it going to take to get you here?
So if you don't answer question 1 with a yes, you don't get to question 2. So you always say yes. It does not matter if if the North Korea fighting football team calls and is like, hey, we're looking for a new offensive coordinator. You're not going to take that job. It's North Korea, but you're going to say, sure. What would it? Just out of curiosity, sure. I could see a scenario where that would happen. So what do you got there, Kim? What do you got? And then that way you get the number, so you can make whoever's paying you pay you more. So that's kind of how all that goes. And with Banks, obviously, Golish would be someone that he would communicate with anyway. They worked together for 2 seasons at Tennessee as the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. So they're doing daily work, scripting things, trying to challenge each other in practice, learning the intricacies of each other's systems. There's obviously a lot of connectivity there. There's a lot of tissue connecting those two. And so that would be, I would imagine, one of the very first calls that he or his people would make, which is, hey, Alex, we thought he was going to Arkansas. He's actually going to Auburn. It looks like he's going to have a coordinator. It looks like Durkin is going to be his coordinator. He's going to keep him. But Tennessee's on the hook for a coordinator salary for me. So you don't have to hire me as a coordinator. I'd love to be one, but I'll go be a safeties coach or a corners coach or special teams coordinator, whatever you want to call it. And you have to pay me a fair amount, but you don't have to go overboard because Tennessee is on the hook for the rest of it. And the contract says you have to make every reasonable effort to get one of the best jobs you can get, and you have to be paid a fair market value for that job, or else Tennessee will sue you or not pay you. You can't go $1, Bob. You can't. It's not The Price is Right where, hey, Auburn, $1, Bob. Now, Butch Jones basically did that, took an intern's position at Alabama for like $40,000 or $50,000 a year. So went to Tennessee's biggest rival for the lowest amount of money that could possibly be taken, and got away with it because, hey, people who go work for Nick Saban then go on and become head coaches. So this is actually a smart professional move for me. So you can't sit here and say that I'm intentionally doing this to you. But we all know I'm intentionally doing this to you. And so, but you can't legally. Tennessee's got to go, you tip your cap, respect. That was a smart move. Smart move, Butch, and you move on. But in this case, it's not like they can say the safeties coach at Auburn is going to make $100K a year. It's going to have to be a hefty fee. And so Tennessee will end up still owing a lot of money to Tim Bakes the next couple of years, but a more reasonable amount than it was yesterday. So
for sure,
that's the good news for Tennessee. Now, in terms of, I imagine there's a possibility that this could break at any time what the details of the Penn State buyout are, because my understanding as of, let's see, 2:35 or so Eastern, 2:40 Eastern, was that they were still working on that, and that the memorandum still says, hey, you're working on this, so here's what Tennessee's paying you, which is $2 million this season, 2.2 the season after that, 2.4 the season after that. So it's a 3-year, $6.6 million deal. And then the buyout is one that you have to figure out with Penn State, and the lawyers will get together and the agents, and they'll come up with something reasonable there. So it shouldn't be outrageous. But if you're Penn State, you're probably fighting tooth and nail for every penny right now, because you're paying James Franklin quite a lot of money for him to be coaching at Virginia Tech. You're paying him a lot of money, some of it mitigated, some of it not, I think. And he's also taken like your entire recruiting class basically with him to Blacksburg. So you are having to, I guess the good news is a bunch of NIL money opened up, because a lot of those guys are Virginia Tech's problem now. That's Virginia Tech. There's old Andy McClung's in there, being like, hey, we're going to get those guys, and so that is what it is. So they're going to get that money back, but they're still paying James Franklin quite a lot of money to not coach there. And on top of that, they're paying Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell was not cheap to pry out of Iowa State. He just wasn't. And so now he wants his staff, and he's going to want his NIL stuff in place. And so, yes, could I see Penn State and Tennessee haggling quite a bit over the funds on this buyout? Yes, because if I'm Penn State, I'm saying every freaking penny. We need it more than you right now, every freaking penny. So we'll see how that goes. But I said last night, that there are so many more reasons, if you're Tennessee, to be excited about this than not be excited about it. But we would not be responsible journalists if we did not consider and discuss the flip side. He has been everywhere he's been. Penn State, he was only there 1 year, so you can't really judge a lot there. And they weren't good defensively at times, but they also, offense is their problem. We all know this. And so, okay, whatever. But he will, everywhere he's been, put together, by the time he's left, basically, almost everywhere, elite defenses. And he's done it sometimes while having a hurry-up offense or a no-huddle offense on the other side of him. On the same sideline, I should say. So when you get Oklahoma State near the top nationally in defense, Oklahoma State, which under Mike Gundy would often score like 50 points a game and allow 49, it felt like. And he put up a defense there, built one, tremendous numbers. Ohio State, we all saw what happened. Do they have dudes? Of course they have dudes. But they built just an absolutely dominant defense by the end of his time there and won a national championship. And that's why Penn State paid a lot of money about 340 or 50 days ago to get him. He's good. He's really good. The flip side is sometimes the way he coaches, the way his system is, it's been described to me and others as something that's a little complex and something that sometimes takes time, i.e., more than one season, to really grasp. And in this situation, like I described this to Emily last night when she was in here and said, if my elevator pitch to you really quickly is I'm going to be maybe the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country, and it might take more than one season for you to really see how this works. Not the best elevator pitch. If we're being honest, on The Bachelor, you're not getting to the next round with that elevator pitch. You're not. You're not getting a second date on The Bachelor with that kind of. And I've watched 0 episodes of The Bachelor, but I'm just guessing how it works. And I'm not trying to brag. I think I've seen every Project Runway episode ever because my wife, you pick battles in a relationship. And there's a lot of stuff I make her watch. She's watched more BBC documentaries on wars than any person ever should. So, in turn, when she says, Project Runway came out, we are binging this. Okay, sure, that's great. So I've seen so I'm not saying, oh, I'm a tough guy, I don't watch The Bachelor. I don't watch The Bachelor because my wife doesn't make me. She does sort of make me watch Project Runway, so that's what we do. I love her to death, so that's why we do this. And then sometimes I secretly get into it. I don't want to be. Every season's the same.
You're just messing around on your phone, but secretly you're paying close. You're like hooked. You're paying close attention.
I'm making derogatory remarks. What's this? Why are we doing this? And I'll be sitting there with Gus, the dog, being like, Gus, why are we watching this girly stuff? We don't want to watch this. We want to see things blow up. But then halfway into the first episode of every season, I'm like, okay, here's who I like and here's who I don't like.
Okay.
And here's who I want to advance and here's who I want to be eliminated. And I get into it. I don't know anything about fashion. You see, I wear the same palette pretty much all the time. But I'm a competitive guy. And I like having, this is my guy. This is my dog. And this is not my dog. I don't want this person to win. I want this person to win. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is the elevator pitch for Knowles can be not quite as great as it would be with a Walters, who went to Washington immediately, boom, done. They're so much better on defense that year. And maybe they're having to manage games more without Michael Penix at quarterback, so maybe they're just having different philosophies. That a lot of things could go into that. But that's the concern with Knowles. But I think what I'll say in fairness to that, I don't think Jim Knowles takes the job at Tennessee without some pretty good guarantees of this is the kind of player I'm going to be able to get here. Because I'm Jim Knowles, I can go basically anywhere, basically. So if I'm coming here to run your defense while you're playing this offense that's never on the field for more than half the game, ever, really, I'm going to need guys. I'm going to need a lot of them, and here's what it's going to cost to get them. I imagine those conversations have been held, or else Jim Knowles is not taking the job. Still, you can buy these guys, and for every situation like at Texas Tech, sometimes there's still times where you don't buy the right guys and it doesn't work. So, yeah, I mean, it's a risk, but anything you do is a risk. Josh Heupel keeps Tim Banks, risk. Gets rid of him, risk. Hire Ryan Walters, risk. Don't hire Ryan Walters, risk. Hire Jim Knowles, risk. Don't hire Jim Knowles, risk. There is risk associated in everything you do, unless you say, I'm going to hire Nick Saban. There you go. Or if you say, I'm going to go get Urban Meyer, and I'm going to win a lot, and then it's going to all end badly at the end when the dam bursts and all the bad stuff comes out, and it's a 30-for-30 waiting to happen. So that's the flip side there. But there are very few certainties. And is Jim Knowles a certainty? No. Is he a good bet? Yes. Look at the history. It does not matter that he's 60 years old. Rick Barnes is 142. He's doing just fine. I think he's 142. Might be 141. I might be exaggerating a little bit.
That may be a little bit of an exaggeration.
A little bit, but
he's looking great for if he is.
Oh,
142.
When I'm 50, I will look worse than he does at however old he is now in his 70s. There's no doubt. Most of us will. He's in great shape. He's a young at heart, always.
Yeah.
Keeps in shape, exercises, all these things. So, but I don't really care that Jim Knowles is 60. I don't care that he's not known as an elite recruiter. You hire somebody who's that prominent, you know what you're getting. You know what you're getting and what you're not getting. And he's not going somewhere without assurances. You're not hiring him without assurances on your end. And in this world of completely new rosters every season, you have to learn to adapt. And I don't think that it's just a guarantee that it will take time. Let's see who they go get. Let's see how the spring goes. Let's see what some of these guys do with their decisions. Let's see who comes from the portal. Let's see who they retain. Let's see how he builds some things up front. Let's see what they, do they fortify that secondary if they need to, if some of these guys are going to follow Jamal McCoy and go pro. Maybe. You got to go get some guys. But they also have Redmond. We'll see what Colton Hood wants to do. We'll see what Ricky Gibson III wants to do. Safety, I think it's pretty clear they got to get more athletic there. I do like Farouk, though. He's only a sophomore this season. I like him. I think he's going to be all right. Some of the film this season with him was rough, and some of it was really good. So he's young. But there are other positions, linebacker, they got to get more athletic. There's things they got to do. But I'm not convinced that this goes like the whole Fulmer Dave Clawson thing did, where Dave Clawson comes in, tries to put in a complex offense. The guys don't understand it because you're at Tennessee, not in the Ivy League, being honest. They have a hard time picking up on some of it because you're flipping the line of scrimmage. Tackles are going left side, right side. There's complexities to it. And Philip Fulmer sees it and goes, these guys aren't getting this. You're going to have to marry what you do with I do. And then you're speaking gobbledygook that the players really don't understand. And they're like, wait, what are we doing now? And it's bad, and Philip Fulmer gets fired, and then Dave Clawson goes on and becomes a good, solid head coach and does some good things at a program where he gets smart guys, really smart guys, and they can do what he wants them to do at Wake Forest, builds a team. So, and this is also a smart guy. I mean, Jim Knowles, he played at Cornell, coached at Cornell as the head coach for years, worked for David Cutcliffe at 2 stops. David Cutcliffe's one of the best offensive minds I've ever been around. And he went against him every day in practice at 2 stops. So I'm not convinced that this is a guy who does not understand. I have to put something in that these guys in their first year can do. And I'd rather do, and this should be everybody's point of view, I think. There's very few things where I say, hey, it's binary here. There's very few times in life where I say it's black or white, binary, whatever you want to call it. I would rather, and I think everyone would be better off doing 10 things at 100 miles an hour than 100 things at 10 miles an hour. For a long, long time, everybody knew what Nebraska football was going to do. Nobody stopped it. When Tim Tebow was playing quarterback for Florida, wasn't the most complex thing ever. At the end of the day, they're spreading the field, and they've got a tight end at quarterback who can run over you. Like, you can't – it does not matter how complex it is if you just run it correctly. Vanderbilt does not do a lot of stuff. You would think with a program like Vanderbilt, with the guys that they're getting, historically, they could run complex stuff because they're smart guys to get into that school, even though they do fudge a little bit at athletics, and they don't talk about it, but they do. Just telling you. But still, I would say the average SAT scores would be higher on that team than the average SEC team. Just throwing that out there as I bet that's the situation. So you would think they could run a lot of stuff, and that would overcome the lack of athleticism and size and all these things. When you watch them, they don't do a lot of things. What they do has options within it, and they just run it well. They don't get out of gaps. the ball goes, for the most part, where it's supposed to go. And then you sprinkle some of that Diego Pavia pixie dust on it. And that playmaking, those plays that he makes he'll drive you nuts, and then he'll go, whoa, how did you do that? That was really, really good. Where'd that come from? But it does not have to be complex. It just has to be executed. And I would imagine that they're going to have something in place. Because I'll tell you this, Josh Heupel's not slowing down his offense in practice. Maybe he'll have the scout team do that. Tennessee runs Tennessee's offense. So every day you're going against an offense that's not going to give you much time at all to make decisions. So you can't get super complex. And sometimes they don't make hardly any subs in a drive. So you can't adjust. So you have to have flexibility within what you're doing. And I refuse to believe that this guy, I don't think you're giving $6.6 million over 3 years to a guy who you know it's going to take 2 years for this thing to work. I mean, maybe, Tom, but I'm not an elite businessman. I'm pretty sure that sounds like bad business if that's the case. Right?
I mean, fair enough. When are we supposed to get that MAU, though, that memorandum?
The one from I've got the one that Knowles signed with Tennessee. I've got that.
Oh, okay.
one.
So we have that in.
Yes, and so I know that it's 3 years, $6.6 million.
Yeah.
The only figure, because it's just the memorandum, it doesn't have everything in there. It's got the very basics, but it does not say. At least I tried to read it. It's 5 pages. It's not War and Peace. I mean, it's not. You know what I mean? Like it's not the Iliad or the Odyssey. I can get through it pretty quick, but I didn't see any. I think they're still working on the Penn State buyout.
Sure.
But other than that, $6.6 million. Now, there would be other assurances that are not going to be in a contract, but the kind of thing that if you break your word on this, the agents are going to know that, and you're going to have a hard time getting guys in the future. So if you tell an assistant, I'm going to be able to get you in the ballpark for this much financially for your guys, I'm going to give you this much freedom to run your stuff. I'm going to, I'm the head coach, I'm your boss, so I tell you what to do, but I know how good you are, so I'm giving you this much leeway. You're basically the head coach of my defense. Now, I'm going to decide sometimes that you're not bringing enough pressure, or that you're blitzing too much, or that why do you have this safety on the field? Why do you have this linebacker on the field? Get him out, get this guy in. I'll do that stuff because I'm your boss. But generally speaking, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. And I'm going to give you a nice allotment with NIL to be able to go get guys. Because I know you're 60 and you don't want to be beating down the doors every day to recruit. I just don't know many people at that age who really, really get after it on the recruiting trail and really understand social media and really understand the way kids these days think. And a lot of that's a big ask. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm sure it does happen. But it's not a big ask. I mean, I'm, just in my very early 40s, right? And there's things, and I work in media, and there are things with certain applications or certain services where I go yell for Justin or Shelby or one of the very smart young people that we have and say, kids, what's wrong? Can you fix this? Grandpa's in trouble again. And I'm a generation younger than that. So yeah, they're gonna have, you got to put aggressive young recruiters around him. We'll see what he wants to do with the staff. That's going to be another fair question. Again, that knowing the way things have gone this week, it's going to come out while, in the next 20 minutes. Knowing this week. But
probably should check on that, actually.
That's a good idea.
Given the track record of how this week has been
that
going.
old refresh button.
Maybe I just need to, check the old social media.
Yeah, because I'm not seeing any large text messages or anything yet. They're like, hey, this is happening. So yeah, there is much more reason to feel good than bad about this. I mean, we're talking about what, 320 or 30 days ago, this guy is wearing a T-shirt that says National Champions because he built a defense that went out and won a national championship. So I'm not going to – I mean, you can play devil's advocate and it's fair. You can say this could go wrong and it's fair. But then you look at the resume and go, okay, you're just trolling me a little. Yes, it did not work great at Penn State, and there could have been many reasons for that. Yes, they got absolutely destroyed by a bad UCLA offense. They did. We saw that game. Now, there's factors that go into these things, like the expectations placed on Penn State and all the pressure going into the season. Then you start to slide a little bit, then things fall off the rails. And that is, you don't get mulligans. Obviously, Franklin didn't. He got fired. But a lot of things can go into that. We don't know, for instance, was Franklin meddling in things or making him do things differently, right? What was going on physically, mentally with some of the guys he inherited or guys they brought in? Did the pressure of the situation in a big year just go the wrong way? And you could say there's some similarities to that and Heupel going into this season, but it's, if we're being honest, it's not even the same stratosphere because Franklin had been at Penn State for a long time. That's a very unique situation. He'd been there for a long time. They'd consistently been the bridesmaid. They consistently came up close, sometimes very close, painfully close in championship-style games. And the fact was there were financial difficulties or challenges for them. I mean, smaller colleges would laugh at this. But compared to Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon, you had issues in terms of getting the funds you needed to get this guy or that guy. Penn State is Penn State. It's loaded. But it's not, the pockets are not the same as they are at Ohio State, Michigan, and with Uncle Phil over there in Eugene, Oregon. And for years, Franklin, kind of behind the scenes and occasionally publicly, would say, hey, we got challenges here that these other guys don't have. And so Penn State in the offseason said, okay, James, give us your list. We'll give you everything on this list. We'll give you every single thing on this list. But by God, you better go win us a championship. And they didn't perform. And everything went sideways. And so for me to sit here and say, well, obviously Jim Knowles was the reason all that happened, that's preposterous. That would not stand. Any lawyer could tear that apart on the stand in a minute. In a minute. There were factors there that make the little bit of, not little bit, the moderate amount of pressure on Heupel going into this season, that will feel like nothing compared to that exact situation he left in College Station. It's not College Station. I'm an idiot. State College. Dumb alert. But also, I'm getting my really small college towns confused. Old man. But they're not the same level of pressure. What happened at Penn State was a very specific situation that just did not go well for anyone. And they said, James Franklin, stop talking about us. We'll give you everything you want, and now you got to go win it all. We'll give you this quarterback back for a lot of money. We'll even give him some national television commercials. He'll be the Dodge Ram guy. I'm Drew Eller, and I got a big old Dodge Ram. That's not how he talks, but he's not Ed Orgeron. But that's, there you go. They give him, you want to keep this guy from going to the draft? Okay, here's what it costs. You want to pick this guy out of the portal? Here's what it costs. Here's all of it. Here's the check. In fact, here is the check is as empty as this page here that for my notes for today, because I had to write a bunch of stories and didn't have time to put anything down here. You just sign here. It has our signature on it. Everything else you go handle. Now go win, because we're taking away every excuse. Go win us the big game. Get us to the next level. He didn't do it. And because of that, a guy who was very unlucky to not be playing for a national championship the year before is out. That's how it happens. So I'm not going to sit here and say, well, UCLA carved him up, so old Jim Knowles isn't what he used to be. Every situation is unique. Now, if things don't go well at Tennessee, then Jim Knowles is going to start being known as a coach killer. And you don't want to be that. But that would be most likely an unfair thing to say. So the bottom line is you're looking at a guy who's one of the very best at what he does and is understood pretty much across the country to be one of the best at what he does. He's paid like it. So you absolutely should expect good results. And if you don't get them, one free pass and then no more. So, yeah, there's – and what I like about this is that it shows to me that Josh Heupel understood the assignment. That, for people who talk about, and not unfairly, something can be inaccurate but fair. You don't think about it that way, but you can have questions that are not accusations. You can have concerns that are not reality. You just can't assume. You can't assume. But there were fair questions out there. I was one of the people asking them. Frankly, I was. Go back and watch the tape. We don't lie. We don't delete. It's out there. And I said, Josh Heupel, are you ruthless enough to fire somebody who might be good but not the best, pay whatever it takes to go get the best, even if you don't really know the guy, let him do his job and get you to the next level? Because that's what Nick Saban would do. That's what Urban Meyer would do. That's what Kirby Smart would do. One of the few really great coaches who wouldn't do it is Dabo, and look where they are now. Because he tried to keep it in the family as much as he could, and Fulmer the same way, tried as much as he could, and then, just didn't. You have to be, the script is there. If you want to be consistently great, because you can cycle up, get the right team in the right year, the right breaks go your way, and you win the whole thing. And then the next year, it just is not the same. Look at Auburn's history, basically. You can cycle up, get it right, and then get it very wrong. But to stay consistently at or near the top, you have to be ruthless.
You got to be decisive.
There you go.
Absolutely.
That's decisive. Is a way to put it that doesn't sound. It doesn't. Well, it's not as
ruthless.
Venomous.
If it was ruthless, there would be like a revolving door, right? If you're going to be absolutely ruthless, you're going to be firing people like no one's business. Correct. That's really not the case with Tennessee here. They're just decisive about where they need to make those changes.
Yes, and the question is, that's a good way to put it. That might be a better word to use. Like, would he be decisive and firm enough to go say, you're very good at what you do? In fact, you were a finalist for the Bros Award, a finalist for the Best Assistant Coach in College Football Award last year. But things were bad this season, and I understand why. But there were too many plays where it's like, why are you still missing that tackle? Why are you consistently in the wrong gap? Why do you not understand how to calibrate your speed on an angle to keep a 30-yard play from being a 70-yard touchdown? How are you doing this? Why, if you're not the best athlete on the field, why are you not always in the right place? That's where you go, okay, you're a very good coach, but we got to make a change to get to the next level. Mm-hmm. We have to try something different. So here's your really nice buyout money, and I'm going to go call it a mercenary if you want. I'm going to go get one of the best, whatever it takes. Would he do that? Because Heupel, people say Banks is his first firing, and I suppose on paper it is. Mm-hmm. There have been times where people have gone elsewhere and he let them call it something else, like somebody accepts a job somewhere else. So we're not we're not firing you. We're letting you walk
going
away.
our different ways.
Yes,
one of those kind of situations.
We're separating
right?
it, and we're not going to announce that you're
Yeah.
gone until whoever's hiring you announces
Yeah.
that they've added you,
Yeah.
which is a professionally admirable thing to do, because it's sometimes it makes you look better if you call it what it is publicly. Hey, this person's not good enough. We're going a different way here,
Yeah.
right? And so my guess would be that Banks sort of knew what was coming, and Knowles in Tennessee, or his representatives, have been talking to Tennessee's people. What did Biggie say? Get your people with my people, and get my friends, your friends, we'll be friends. And they had this lined up, ready to roll, more or less, and they just were like, now we'll just put a pen on paper,
Yeah.
or e-sign, or whatever you're doing these days. And I looked at Jim Knowles' signature, by the way, and that there's no way that's an e-signature, because it is so comically. It is.
We were talking about handwriting yesterday.
It's
were we not?
it is what you could politely call haphazard. You could call it low energy signaturing.
I mean,
it's just like whatever.
If you have to sign your name 1,000,000 times, it's going to turn into like 3 lines.
There you
eventually,
go.
Right?
And so and
of curves here
not
and
everybody
there.
has like Dale Earnhardt's iconic signature that was just fantastic. My dad has a really awesome signature too. I don't. Mine sucks. But if you would, Josh Heupel be this firm, this decisive, this motivated to understand the assignment, to understand what the stakes are, and now nobody can say he wasn't bold enough to go do something.
For sure.
He went and did
it. Got it done before the postseason's over.
Yes.
And that's got to hand it to him. Good timing on his part.
Got it.
You got to look for some
There
good news somewhere
you
before
go.
the season totally ends, right?
Yeah, and here you go. And maybe this affects things, because if you're asking why we haven't talked about the Sharon Moore stuff, we talked about it a lot last night. So there is the cloud hanging over all of this, that just when you think things have started to settle and this is where these coaches will be next season, well, let's just put a vacancy on one of the Rushmore jobs. Let's just throw that in there. So by the way, now we're going to shuffle the entire deck again, unless they hire from within, which if Michigan hires from within, with everything that's happened there the past 5 or 6 years, they are the dumbest people in college sports. And I don't think they are the dumbest people. I think they finally understand now they got to get away from this entire Harbaugh tree. All of it. Root, stem, burn it out. Control burn. Get it gone. And in a couple of years, you can have something else planted there. But unless they hire from the NFL, you're going to have maybe a coach going from top-tier school to top-tier school, but eventually look at it as tiers. And if Michigan hires from within the college world, there's no way that a vacancy doesn't end, that there's not a vacancy at a top-tier job, where then you start to move the deck up. No matter what happens, at some point, whether it's Michigan hiring from another top tier, or there's going to be another prominent vacancy because of what's going on in Michigan. And so you're going to have to shuffle the entire deck again. That's where you start the chaos. And do I have any idea where that's going to end? No, I don't. Because, I mean, you're talking about, like, does Kalen DeBoer consider it? Maybe. At least of last night, he was the betting favorite. It's not been on my list of things to look at today, so it could have changed. But, I mean, I'm not saying it would happen, but if it did, then Bama's got an opening. And would the only person I could think of who would do this, Lane Kiffin, would he go, oh, I'm going to go to Bama? You know what I mean? Like, and you talk, because only one person would do that. It's Lane.
Pulling the lane train.
That would be the coup de grace. That would be that would just be
when you make it your reputation, I guess you can just expect it.
That would
be
be
too burn up about it.
That would be Lane's Mona Lisa. It would be framed in the Louvre for all time, for people to come by and watch it and look at it and stare at it and have documentaries discussing it. It would be so good. So good. And he's the only person I think who would do that. So But that's just one scenario. There are a million scenarios out there where, okay, now whoever hires, at some point do you get a vacancy where now somebody from Tennessee is going to want to go fill that vacancy somewhere because the money's getting crazy and you can't say no to it. Somebody's going to double your salary. Hey, all right. I've said it before, this is as far north as I will ever live. Unless you want to like double or triple my salary. You do that, I'll go be cold. I'll go be cold. I mean,
This ain't nothing.
you know, it's like, you're like at that point, you're like, I love being here, but, my kid it'll be easier for the kid to go to college now. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's business, right? So, and that's, there are a lot of things that could happen. So everything that we've talked about today, if Michigan goes in a certain direction, it could upend all of it. And by golly, it's entertaining. I mean, now, with a caveat, when the assault stuff came up and the allegations and the police reports and Moore being in custody, that's where the laughter stops, because that's where you go from, okay, look, another, young, rich, successful businessman who claims to be an upstanding member of society and talks about it a lot, gets caught, where he shouldn't be. And that, it's not funny for the family, but as society, if you want to laugh at that, I'm not going to stop you. I hate it very much for the children and for the wife and all these things, but I'm not going to stop you or try to stop you from laughing a little bit at when you see somebody who claims to be something and then you find out there's something else and you go, I get it. But then that police report came out and you're like, oh, not laughing now. So I'm not making light of that at all. That was scary, and I'm glad to this point nobody got physically very hurt. Emotionally, looks like there's going to be a lot of fallout from that, and I'm not making light of that. But physically, everybody looks okay. So that's good. But man, it captivates you. It just does. Like there's that. It's and not with more specifically, but one of those things that we all think and nobody talks about. When like a big natural disaster looks like it's coming, you can't not look. You're glued to the screen and updating your socials and, watching, different screens. You got your iPad doing this, your phone doing this, and your TV on the wall doing this, and you're looking at everything because it captivates you. And this college football offseason has been a circus, clown car, sideshow debacle that you can't turn away from. And at the end of all this, knock on wood, Tennessee will have a better staff than it did when it entered that. When you go into you get on Mad Max's Fury Road, like this offseason is, and it is that. You make it to the end with more parts or better parts than you had at the beginning, buddy, you've had a good offseason. You've had a good offseason because there's a lot of people who, even if they have a nice situation, they're much less cash rich than they were going into it. They're cash poor at the end of the circle. You know what I mean? Like they may have got from A to B and this car looks really shiny. Your bank account doesn't. Tennessee has a chance. Famous last words. Tennessee has a chance to get to the end of this offseason with a better staff on paper than they had before. And it costs some money, but not like Penn State's situation, not like LSU's situation, not like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not Florida's situation, not Florida State from years ago with Jimbo. Different situation. You're a little poorer than you were, but not much. And it would be totally worth it. If you get to the end of this, Knowles is your coordinator with staffers that he wants, and it didn't cost you so much that NIL funds are imperiled, or that's good. That's really good. That's really, really good. If you can get to that point, then you could say at the end of a not bad, but frustrating Tennessee football season. It wasn't terrible. It was bad. It had a terrible ending. And yes, the Vanderbilt game was the end. I don't care what happens in the bowl game.
Hey, you know how we were talking about how Tennessee loves to drop news in the middle of this podcast? Guess what they just dropped?
What?
Wide receiver Chris Brazzell, he's declared.
That one we expected.
We expected that, but it's official now.
Yes. So that's official. So now
we'll wrap this show up once again with news.
We'll get out of here before something else happens again. But my point is, I'll say this at the very, very end, 10 seconds. This is Tennessee has a chance to get from point A to point B at the end of a frustrating year with a better staff than they had before and enough money to go spend on players to get them good, to get them better, to get them what they need to be. Or it could be the exact opposite. We'll see you in about 23 hours.